Welcome to Senior Talks, the place where we share valuable lessons about life, family, and old age. Here, we don't presume to teach anyone how to live. Rather, we aim to offer profound perspectives so that each person can draw their own conclusions. Today, we will explore the 7 greatest pains of old age, things that, if not recognized early, can become irreversible regrets. Let's listen and reflect together. 1. The pain of having everything but a life partner. There's a truth that many people only realize when they've nearly reached the end of their lives. We might achieve everything society considers successful. Money, houses, fame, grown children. But one day, as twilight falls, when the laughter of grandchildren no longer echoes nearby, we are startled to find ourselves sitting quietly in a large house, possessing everything, except a life partner by our side. Only then do we truly grasp the meaning of real loneliness. When young, everyone has their own ambitions. We diligently pursue careers, spending our youth working, earning money. We strive to provide a better life for our families, give our children the best foundation, and ensure an old age free from worries about basic needs. But in that whirlwind, have we ever unintentionally forgotten our life partner? Have we ever skipped precious moments together simply because work was too demanding? Have we ever thought that love and connection could wait, could be made up for later, when things are more stable? But by the time we realize this, it might already be too late. Loneliness in old age differs from the loneliness of youth. While a young person can seek out friends or immerse themselves in work to forget the emptiness, it's not so easy for the elderly. Close friends grow old and frail. Some have already departed this world. Children are busy with their own families. No matter how much they love their parents, they cannot always be present. At that point, who will listen to you? Who will share a cup of tea with you each morning? Who will sit beside you during the slow sunsets on the porch? The greatest pain of not having a life partner beside you isn't just the emptiness, but the lack of someone to share with. Old stories, beautiful memories, difficulties overcome together. If there's no one to reminisce with, do they still hold meaning? A meal, no matter how lavish, tastes bland if eaten alone. A house, no matter how spacious and grand, is merely a cold space if there's no one to share it with. Then there will be days you are ill, with no one beside you to offer a glass of water or a pill. There will be sleepless nights, lying there staring at the ceiling, with no one to confide in. When you go out and see elderly couples holding hands, walking and laughing together, you'll suddenly feel your heart clench. You realize that having everything but lacking someone to accompany you to the end of life is perhaps the greatest loss of all. Life doesn't always grant second chances. Some things, if not cherished right now, can never be recovered. Don't wait until you are old, nearing the end of your life, to regret not spending enough time with the most important person. Don't let the days of youth sweep you so far away that when you wish to turn back, you realize it's too late. Love and cherish those beside you right now, because ultimately money, fame, and success are all fleeting. What remains, what truly makes a life complete, is the love and companionship of a life partner. 2. The pain of having abundant wealth but no health. Have you ever wondered what would happen if one day you woke up surrounded by the cold, white walls of a hospital instead of experiencing a peaceful morning in your own home? You might have a substantial bank account, a long list of assets, yet be powerless to step outside and breathe fresh air. Money can buy medicine, but it cannot buy back the days when you didn't have to swallow pills with every meal. It's often said that in youth, people trade health for money, but in old age, they use money to buy back health. Ironically, some things once lost can never be regained. They worked relentlessly, plunged into the race for fame and fortune, earned vast sums of money, only to look back and find their bodies worn down by the years. Waking up each morning is no longer a fresh start full of energy, but a repetitive cycle of pain, endless prescriptions, and doctor's appointments. Money can help prolong life, but it cannot help you enjoy life fully. You can hire nurses for care, but how can you purchase the feeling of freedom when walking on your own 2 feet, doing small things that previously required no thought? At some point, you realize the most terrifying thing isn't death, but living without the strength to do what you desire. It's when you can only watch life pass by, a observe your children and grandchildren enjoying themselves, while you exist within the confines of illness. No one denies the importance of money, but if you focus solely on earning it while neglecting self-care, one day you will pay a price far dearer than anything you ever earned. A weakened body, a thick medical file, and an old age tied to hospitals. Is that what you desire when you possess every material comfort? Life is a long journey, and health is the very ticket that allows you to travel far. If you don't take time to care for yourself now, by the time you recognize its importance, you might no longer have enough time left to change. Invest in your health while you are young, because it is the most precious asset in old age. 3. The pain of having children and grandchildren but being abandoned. Have you ever imagined the feeling of an elderly person sitting quietly by the window, gazing out at an empty yard, waiting for a phone call that never comes, a visit that never happens? When younger, we thought having children and grandchildren meant we wouldn't be lonely in old age. We believed we sacrificed everything to raise a family, expecting to receive love and care in return eventually. But reality is sometimes harsher than we imagine. Having children and grandchildren yet still feeling lonely, that is the deepest pain. The elderly fear being forgotten more than poverty or illness. They were once strong fathers and mothers who struggled to support the family, stayed up all night caring for sick children, spent their last pennies so their children could have a better future. Yet, in their twilight years, as their strength wanes and their steps slow, they realize their children are too busy with their own lives. The children's schedules are packed with work, appointments, responsibilities to their own small families. Phone calls become rarer, visits are reserved for holidays, sometimes not even then. The elderly live quietly in their own homes, yet feel like strangers in their own lives. That pain lies not just in the physical absence of children and grandchildren, but also in the invisible indifference. Some children still send money monthly, ensuring their parents have material comfort, but lack the most crucial element or affection. Meals with no one to share, stories with no one to listen, worries with no one to confide in. When children view their parents merely as a responsibility, when meetings become obligations, when hugs are mere social conventions, the hearts of the elderly gradually grow cold. Many parents believed the unconditional love they gave their children would be reciprocated when they grew old. But life doesn't always operate fairly. Some children forget their parents due to busyness. Some, through carelessness, assume their parents will always be fine. And some, though unspoken, view their aging parents as a burden. A large house lacking laughter, birthdays spent alone, cold meals because no one eats together. Sometimes all they need is a simple mom or dad. Just a little time, a small gesture of care, but even that becomes a luxury. So how can this pain be avoided? No one can force their children to love them, but the elderly themselves can create value for themselves. Don't let yourself become someone who only waits. Build new relationships, find new joys, and most importantly, learn to love yourself before expecting others to love you. Life is cyclical. What we give, we sometimes don't receive back in the way we desire. But that doesn't mean we don't deserve to be loved. Live in such a way that your children and grandchildren respect you, not just see you as a responsibility. 4. The pain of having wayward children and grandchildren. Have you ever witnessed an elderly person, hair white as snow, eyes dim, yet still quietly entering prison gates to visit their child? Have you ever seen an old man, back so bent he can barely stand straight, still having to work odd jobs, scraping together every last cent to pay off debts for his children or grandchildren? These images are not unfamiliar. They are real tragedies happening every day, everywhere, representing the deepest pain an elderly person can bear, having children and grandchildren who have gone astray. This pain is not just emotional damage. It's a heavy burden pressing down on the final years of life. When giving birth and raising children, every parent places hope in them. They believe their child will grow up to be a good person, live decently, know love, and repay the gift of life. But life doesn't always unfold as expected. Some children, some grandchildren, despite being loved and cared for, end up on the wrong path. They make mistakes, live selfishly, disregard their parents or grandparents, Some even ruthlessly exploit their own creators for profit. There are mothers and fathers past 70, backs bent, legs weak, who still have to travel from the countryside to the city, sitting outside courtrooms to hear the verdict for the child they once held and nurtured. That child, once innocent and carefree, protected in parental arms, now bows their head, hands cuffed, standing before the court for their crimes. In that moment, what pain is greater than that of the parent? They blame themselves, wondering if they didn't teach their child well enough, or if fate was too cruel. Then there are grandparents nearing death's door, still having to toil away to pay off debts incurred by their children or grandchildren. Some, over 80, still collect scrap metal, cut grass for hire, wash dishes, simply because their children failed in business, accrued debts, and fled. The most heart-wrenching is when these children feel no remorse, continuing their bad habits, ignoring their aging parents who are exhausting themselves daily because of them. This is no longer merely about money. It's the greatest betrayal of the effort of raising them. Some, until their very last breath, carry a gnawing worry. What will become of my child? They lie on their deathbed, breath weak, yet their minds are filled with countless concerns. Does my child still owe money? After I'm gone, who will look after them? Will they realize their mistakes and change? These questions, though unanswered, cling to them until they close their eyes for the last time. The pain of having wayward children and grandchildren serves as a warning to us all. The elderly need not only a roof over their heads, but, more importantly, children and grandchildren who know how to live righteously, cherish family ties, and shoulder their own responsibilities. Above all, this reminds everyone, raising children well from a young age is more important than any inheritance left behind. Money can be lost and earned again, but a spoiled child, once set on the wrong path, is very difficult to turn back. Educating children, teaching them morality, responsibility, and love from an early age is the only way to avoid this pain later on. Because nothing is crueler than seeing your child go astray and being powerless to save them. Nothing is more painful than spending a lifetime loving someone, only for that person to become the reason your final years are filled with tears. 5. The pain of having a house but not a home. Some houses are very large, very beautiful, luxurious villas with opulent interiors, fully equipped. But there's a bitter truth few dare to face. Within those splendid walls, there is no family warmth. Laughter has become a luxury. Dinner tables are no longer filled with family members. People live under the same roof but are as distant as strangers. The feeling of loneliness within one's own house is one of the greatest pains a person can experience. When young, everyone desires a spacious house, a comfortable living space. But when old age arrives, the only thing they yearn for isn't the size of the house, but connection, the warmth emanating from loved ones. Unfortunately, not everyone realizes this early enough to cherish precious family moments. A true home isn't measured by the number of floors, nor valued by expensive furniture, but by the affection shared among those living within it. A small house filled with laughter is worth infinitely more than an empty castle. But some people, only at the end of their lives, realize that despite having everything, they are living in a cold house, not a warm home. Entering their twilight years, many elderly face a harsh reality. Children have grown up, busy with their own lives, no longer spending much time with their parents. Family meals become increasingly infrequent. Sometimes, they spend the entire day alone in the large house, accompanied only by silent walls. No one asks how they are feeling. Brief phone conversations cannot fill the void of loneliness. Some people grew up in a family but never felt the warmth of kinship. Parents might have been very wealthy but focused solely on making money, forgetting to spend time with their children. They provided material things but neglected hugs, words of encouragement, moments of sharing joys and sorrows together. Children raised in such coldness find it difficult to build a true home when they grow up, because they never learned what true love means. There are also those who neglected their family due to demanding careers. By the time they have time to return, their parents are old and frail, their children are grown, and the distance between them has become too vast. Conversations lack intimacy. Shared meals become awkward. When they realize that the most important things in life aren't success or money, but family, it might be too late. A true home doesn't need to be wealthy. It doesn't need to have the best of everything. The most crucial element is the presence of loved ones. Just a simple meal with all family members present constitutes happiness. Just a sincere inquiry is enough to warm the lonely heart of an elderly person. Happiness isn't found in the size of the house, but in the connection between the people inside it. Therefore, if you are fortunate enough to have a family beside you, don't wait until it's too late to realize that family bonds are more important than anything else. A house is a place to return to, but without love, it's merely a soulless space. Cherish your loved ones while you still can, because time never turns back. 6. The pain of having no friends to share with. There's something few think about when young, but which becomes a nagging pain in old age: the absence of friends. In youth, we are busy with work, family, appointments, distant plans. We have many relationships, but not everyone is truly a friend. Then one day, when children are grown, work is done, those we once considered close drift away. Suddenly one morning, we realize there's no one left to call and chat with, no one to share a coffee with, no one to confide in about the burdens in our hearts. The loneliness of old age isn't just long, quiet days, but the feeling that no one truly understands us. When young, we might not notice, but friends are crucial pieces that make a life complete. They are the ones we turn to in joy, the ones we lean on in difficulty. A phone call, a handshake, a simple inquiry can sometimes be worth more than money or material possessions. But then, when old age arrives, these seemingly simple things become luxuries. It's said, having friends is like having another life. This is truer than ever as we age. Without friends, the world seems to shrink to just walls, repetitive news channels, meals eaten alone. We may have children and grandchildren, but they have their own lives. They can't sit for hours listening to us reminisce about old times, stories that only peers can truly empathize with. The older we get, the more we understand that friends aren't just people we spent our youth with, but also vital emotional support in our final years. An old friend, someone who walked through ups and downs with us, understands our pain without needing words. They remind us that we lived a meaningful life, that we are not anonymous figures forgotten by time. But if we don't cherish and maintain friendships when young, how can we expect connection in old age? Friendship is like a tree. It needs care so it doesn't wither with time. Meetings, inquiries, seemingly simple acts are important connecting threads. If we are solely engrossed in work, family, personal ambitions, and forget friends, by the time we need them, it might be too late. Without friends, even joy becomes dull. A trip with no companion, a funny story with no one to laugh with, a beautiful memory with no one to recall it. All these things make life gradually lose meaning. We might have money, a nice house, but without someone to share with, do these things still matter? Perhaps the greatest pain of having no friends isn't loneliness, but the feeling of being forgotten. When no one asks about you, no one remembers your birthday, no one brings up old memories, you become like a shadow fading with the years. Your existence is no longer acknowledged by anyone, and that is truly the scariest thing. So don't wait until old age to feel regret. Cherish true friends right now. Make time for them no matter how busy life gets. A text, a call, a meeting might not take much time, but can preserve a lifelong friendship. Don't wait until looking back to realize you've lost the most precious people. Because old age needs not only money but also people who can listen, accompany us, and remind us that we are not alone. 7. The pain of looking back on life filled with regret. There's something more frightening than death itself. Living a life filled with regret. When youth passes and we enter the final years of life, certain feelings persistently haunt us. Not because of the things we did, but precisely because of the things we never dared to do. It's often said that people don't fear failure as much as they fear looking back and realizing they lived a bland, unremarkable life, never daring to pursue passions, not loving fully, and not enjoying what they could have. That regret isn't just a fleeting pain but a persistent wound, gnawing at the soul through the years. One of the greatest regrets in life is not daring to live the way you truly wanted. When young, We are bound by family expectations, societal norms, advice from elders. We fear judgment, fear failure, fear taking the wrong path. So, we accept a safe life, doing what others deem right instead of living the life we genuinely desire. Only when nearing the end of the journey do we ask ourselves, if I had been braver back then, would things be different now? But there's no way to go back. A second major regret is not spending more time with family. When young, we throw ourselves into work, pursue careers, chase social connections. We think there's plenty of time to return to family, that parents will always be there, that children will always be by our side. But life is inherently impermanent. Loved ones cannot wait for us forever. By the time we realize this, parents may be old, children grown and moved beyond our embrace. The warm moments we missed can never be reclaimed. At that point, all that's left are old photos, distant memories, and the pain of someone once too busy to love. Many also regret not loving themselves more. We might have spent our whole lives living for others, sacrificing for family, dedicating ourselves to work, but forgetting ourselves. We accepted hurt, swallowed tears, endured injustices just for fear of upsetting someone. We forgot to care for our health, forgot to enjoy small but precious things. When old age descends, the body is no longer the same, and physical and mental pains gradually become apparent. We ask ourselves, if only I had valued myself more back then, maybe things wouldn't be like this now. And there's an even deeper regret, regretting not expressing feelings to important people in our lives. How many words of love were left unsaid? How many hugs ungiven? How many times did we want to apologize but hesitated? We keep thinking we have plenty of time, but then one day, when we realize that's no longer true, only regret remains. The people we love most may no longer be with us, and all we have left is a heart heavy with unspoken words. Regret isn't entirely avoidable, but it can be lessened if we learn to live fully starting today. Don't wait until the end of life to realize you could have lived differently. Be brave enough to pursue what you want. Cherish moments with family, love yourself, and don't hesitate to express your feelings. Because at some point, the scariest thing isn't death, but realizing you haven't truly lived. Conclusion: there's a moment we all must face, when our hair begins to gray, when health is no longer robust, and when those around us gradually depart. Old age doesn't arrive suddenly. It creeps in day by day, moment by moment, and only when we notice, it's right before us. But the frightening thing isn't age itself, but what often accompanies it. Loneliness, illness, and inconsolable regrets. Loneliness is perhaps the deepest pain the elderly endure. When children grow up and have their own lives, when peers gradually pass away, the elderly are left behind in the silence of a home once filled with laughter. Meals eaten alone, evenings with only the ticking clock, and longing for a phone call from children or grandchildren become routine. Loneliness isn't just the absence of people. It's the feeling of being forgotten, of no longer being needed. Prolonged loneliness can turn into depression, diminishing both physical and mental health, making life lose meaning. Illness is an unavoidable aspect of aging. Bones weaken, memory isn't as sharp, the body loses flexibility. Conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, and heart disease become unwelcome companions. But more frightening than illness itself is the feeling of helplessness. Wanting to do something but the body no longer allows it, having to depend on medication and others' help. Some elderly face illness alone, with no one to care for or comfort them. Each passing day is a battle with pain, with the fear of becoming a burden to their children and grandchildren. Regrets are also a pain not easily soothed. These could be unfulfilled dreams, words left unsaid, past mistakes with no chance for correction. When young, we chase work, money, distant goals, forgetting family, forgetting ourselves. In old age, looking back, we realize some things are more important than fame and fortune, but it's too late to change. Old memories become obsessions, unfinished dreams become persistent pangs, and we can only blame ourselves for not living differently when we had the chance. But old age doesn't have to be a journey filled with suffering. What matters is how we prepare for it starting now. Maintain your health while you can, spend time with loved ones, live fully to minimize regrets. Learn to enjoy simple pleasures, like a peaceful morning with a hot cup of tea, a good book, or simply a moment chatting with loved ones. Happiness in old age doesn't come from luxuries, but from inner peace, from love and connection with people. Old age isn't scary. The scariest things are living in loneliness, illness, and regret. Start today, love more, take better care of yourself, and cherish what you have. If you find these shares helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe to the Senior Talks channel to help spread meaningful life lessons together. Thank you for watching. See you in the next topics.